Well, I was, waiting and waiting and waiting. Larry was out on the road someplace, and who knows? Larry, I forgot to ask you, where in the United States are you?
I am in Mount Vernon, Illinois.
Okay. I lived in St. Louis until I was 17 years old, and I wouldn't be able to point to Mount Vernon if you made me.
I passed through, just a few minutes ago, St. Louis, an hour ago, and I carefully metered my charging so I wouldn't have to stop in St. Louis because I don't know what's a good area of St. Louis, what's a poor area. My son-in-law was assaulted in St. Louis, sitting outside the hotel and having a smoke. Somebody
Oh,
came up and
nice.
tapped him over the head.
Right.
So I have this really bad feeling. If anybody lives in St. Louis, I'm sorry.
The
And
city is not good. The city is not good, and East St. Louis is one of the worst places in the country. So,
so I didn't know where was good and where was not good and so on. So I kind of routed my charging around there. But I've traveled a long way. I mean, I left Lake Tahoe yesterday morning.
okay.
Dropped my wife off, at the airport. She flew back, and then I went to Giga, Nevada, and looked around.
Did you get to see anything at Giga Nevada that impressed you?
Yeah, I saw a fair number of fairly large buildings, more than half of which were empty. I think they were built in the hope that a lot of suppliers would set up shop there,
Oh,
and that may come. Aurora was there; they're a big. I think they're a level one
supplier.
supplier. There were a few buildings that were occupied clearly by multiple smaller vendors, smaller suppliers. And then there were a lot of empty buildings. They're
Hmm.
big buildings. They are
Hmm.
big factories that seem to have been built on spec. But I suspect now there's going to be a big influx with the building of the new, the extensions. A lot of road work, a lot of buildings going up. Seem to be a lot of activity. Did see quite a few trucks going backwards and forwards between Fremont and Giga Nevada. Yeah, and then I settled from Sparks yesterday morning, and by before midday, and then been traveling across the states. There you are.
You've seen a lot of corn.
Yeah, I'm planning to be home tomorrow night, which is 3 days from west to east.
That's a fast trip.
Yeah,
But you are driving in an X. So,
I'm
how
driving.
bad can it be?
No, the X is driving me.
It's driving.
The X is driving me.
But don't you
And
know Mercedes is now way ahead
yes,
of Tesla in terms
yeah,
of their level three?
level three. Yeah, if you drive on a specific road in a specific lane, and
Between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as long as it's not raining or snowing or sleeting.
yeah, I will say that I think I told you that I'd had three strikes when I set
Yes, you
out,
did. Yeah, yeah.
and then I had to rely on auto steer, which does a great job. But I've been driving all the way on uh, full self driving, and it's gone very, very well. I must say, very, very well. Now don't shoot for zero interventions. I don't even try.
Yeah.
But I will say that it makes life very, very easy. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to several of yours
Thank you.
and several others, and it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I normally listen to books on the drive, And I was able on the drive out to finish Walter's book.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, and that, it set off a lot of thinking. But most of the time, I'm really studying the supercharging network, just understanding the multiple different types, sightings, and the services that I feel we need to support. We need to provide to support the supercharger network. I think I've given you my thesis before of why the supercharging network needs, a support around it. And in very simple terms is, we use a supercharging network not like we use gas stations.
Right.
Gas stations are used, by everybody every day.
Right.
But if you have a Tesla, you're probably going to charge it at home, with some exceptions, but generally it's, I think the vast majority are charged at home. You only use the supercharging network when you travel on trips. And therefore, the experience of that supercharger network is very important. And sometimes, when you travel, very widely, you see that there's a tremendous variation in the experience.
Oh, okay.
Last night I was at a stop that was just fantastic. They had this was a stop that had 6 different restaurants as part of this large station, including a Starbucks, including several good road restaurants and franchises, and it was a beautiful store, and the chargers were visible from the road, clear and visible from the road, so you were kind of safe, and they had a nice park to eat in, and a children's playground in that park, and a doggy park next door.
Oh,
so and the toilets were beautifully kept. So that is an experience. And the other thing is, the supercharger network was a very easy walk, not more than 20 yards walk to the plaza. And they had trash bins.
Oh, nice.
I want to tell you, when you travel in there's a trash bin 200 yards across the parking lot on a hot baking day. It's not fun.
Right.
And that generally leads to a very, very dismal sight with trash strewn around. And they had windscreen squeegees.
Oh, okay.
In the setup amongst the chargers, with clean water in them, clean detergent in them. Now, all of those things I described, for the most part, are missing in many of these sites.
Right. In fact, I basically see them in Los Angeles County, Riverside County, San Diego County. That's where I do most of my supercharging. And I would say almost all of those are in shopping centers, usually in a parking garage of some kind, or at the back of a major mall, are at a Target. A lot of them are at Targets. Most of them, I can't remember ever seeing a squeegee. I'm not sure whether or not I've ever seen a trash can. And most of them are, if they're fine, there's practical, pragmatic, whatever, but they're not an experience, that's for sure.
No. And, that's a relatively short trip. So maybe that's okay in an urban setting, as long as the place is cleaned up every night, which typically they are in a Target, So that's kind of okay. But when you're traveling on the road, it would be awfully nice to be able to put into your app that you're going to be arriving at such and such a time, and you'd like to be served such and such a food, or you need a ride to such and such a place while you're charging because you want to do this piece of shopping or that piece, or whatever it is. So there's a lot to be thought about and a lot to be done. And the variation, it's kind of like gas stations. There's some really bad ones and there's some really nice ones. But, we want the experience of traveling, with a Tesla to be a cut above all of
Continue to be. I cut them out.
Yeah. So that's my mission right now, is to discover all the requirements and then delete and delete and delete those requirements till I've got like the minimum viable product for what I think would be a good solution to this problem.
Well, when you're traveling and listening to those podcasts and checking out, I'm sure, the news from time to time, we had a very surprising uptick in the market today. I don't think anybody was expecting it. Seemed to be a complete, as the bond yields came down and oil prices came down a little, the stock market went up. It seemed to be all kind of rhythmic, almost the opposite of what I talked about on my program this morning, that I thought maybe we were at the top on oil. Well, not the top on oil, but the top on yields. Do you think we're anywhere near the top on yields, Larry? The 10-year?
No, I'm a pessimist on yields. I mean, you've heard me opine quite a lot. We just have this gigantic overhang of huge debt that has to be rolled over. It's all coming due, in the next year. And, debt has to be repaid or rolled over.
It's not only the part that's going to be rolled over, they have to issue more because the deficit continues to grow. And now we're growing, somebody said this morning, 15% of the I forget. I can't come up with it. But anyway, the numbers are just crazy in terms of the amount of interest that is now contributing to the increase in the debt.
Yeah, the interest now exceeds our defense budget.
The interest now exceeds it.
Yeah, interest now exceeds our defense budget. We're not going to be able to fund Social Security. Every election, no, it used to be in the 2000s and until about 2008, in 1992 to 2008, we used to talk about the coming crisis when Medicare, Medicaid was going to go bankrupt or Social Security was going to go bankrupt. And Bush, too, tried to reform Social Security. He got his neck handed to him, although I think it was after his second election. So, it wasn't the end of the world. I mean, he thought it was the end of the world.
He thought it was, yeah.
But we gave up on thinking about it. Suddenly, it's now less than a decade.
Yeah. And maybe less than that, because
maybe less than that. And since COVID, we've quadrupled our deficit. And all those bills that they had the budget office calculate, the Congressional Budget Office calculate and say, yeah, this is neutral, or yeah, this is, they just piled the IOUs one on top of the other. So I'm not sanguine, and I think we're headed for a recession. Trot out my happy families and unhappy families saw again. All happy families are all happy in the same way, but unhappy families are all unhappy in a different way. Every recession is different, but it's a recession, and this recession is probably going to be all about debt.
Yeah, I think if we have a recession, I think you're right. I'm looking, Larry, for a trigger event, and I know that you think the debt could be that very trigger.
Okay, I'll revise a little bit my forecast. Debt will be the trigger. A recession will come, I just don't know exactly when, whether it'll be this round of funding, upcoming year or the year after, but it's going to be a very considerable one. And it's going to involve a reorganization of the monetary structure of the world, of the developed world. Whether it's going to lead to the situation where the dollar is no longer going to be the world's currency, I don't see that happening. But there's going to be a revision of the kind that, when Nixon abandoned gold or took us off the gold standard, or when it's going to be a very, very significant realignment.
Is it going to be
I could be wrong. Is it going to be what?
Is it going to be Bitcoin?
I doubt it very much.
Me too. But let me see if I can put words in your mouth that, as we discussed in the green room before we came on, that the debt crisis could end up being a crisis of confidence. Not so much, we've had 7% interest rates. We've had 7% yields on 10 years before, but it would be
we've had considerably higher than 7%.
We've had considerably higher than 7%, and nobody right now, even the ones that are the most negative, are talking about more than 7%, and there's only a few that are talking 7%. So if we got to 7%, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to have a recession. But your idea would be that the 7% isn't the issue. It's the crisis in confidence that becomes the problem. Did I get you right on that?
You're only half right.
Okay.
You say that the half that's wrong is the 7%. You say 7%. Why? I don't know. I don't know that anybody can know what's going to happen when the bonds really hit the fan. I mean, there is a very, very significant funding coming.
That's right. Yes.
Very, very significant. And it could be bid up to 10. It could be bid up to 14. It could. Look, I remember bond issuance in the 12.5% to 13% range in the late 70s. Why not?
No, but that was with inflation at huge numbers. We have not seen.
Remember, every unhappy family is unhappy. Every recession has got a whole lot of different components,
yes,
and that fit together in different ways. You can't predict these things, but what you can say is that, when something can't go on any longer, it doesn't. So.
Yeah, okay. So I think that was what I took away from what you had said earlier. To have real bond rate, or to have real interest rates on treasuries to be significantly higher than 1.5% would be unusual. In fact, it would be, right now it's at over 2%. That's unusual enough. But if it was at 5% or something like that, real interest, that could create that crisis of confidence. If that was sucking up all of the funding for equities and funding for banks and everything else, that could be a crisis of confidence.
Yeah. What happens if, nobody comes to buy these bonds?
Well, that's why the rate goes up, right? Because nobody's buying them.
And nobody buys them at any price.
Then the Fed has to print money and buy them themselves, right? Add to their assets.
Right. And then international trade kind of gums up because people are no longer comfortable accepting dollars.
Right. Yeah, I think
this is a fun world.
Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you for cheering us up. No, I think this is real. I am the optimist. I understand that, and I'm always the guy looking for the positive outcome. But that doesn't mean doesn't mean I don't see reality. And reality is, I've seen when cash dried up before, and that's, to me, the most horrible kind of recession, at least from the standpoint of a business owner, is when cash dries up. But this would be cash drying up on a whole different level.
Right. Yeah. We could avoid it. Who knows? Look, Japan muddled through, and Japan is slowly. I mean, it's taken them 4 decades. They're slowly coming out of it. Now, what happens when the reserve currency of the world goes through what Japan went through?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know. And do we have to go through it? Maybe not. Maybe, the robot is the miracle that we're all seeking, and AI is the miracle we're all seeking. We get this gigantic productivity. Everybody stops working, but, the economy just grows and grows. Who knows?
Yeah.
I won't be around. I mean, fortunately, it'll be long after I'm gone, but you guys will have to, these other guys will have to figure it out.
Larry, I think we're gonna wrap it right there. I appreciate you coming after your long drive, checking into your hotel, then
making you cheerful, cheering you up,
trying to make sure that I can sleep well tonight. It's always great to have you on board, Larry, and we'll look forward to speaking to you maybe over the weekend, maybe on Monday after you're home. You've had a chance to kind of, get into your easy chair for a day, and we'll pick it up from there.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, thank you, and to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you. If you don't mind, I do want to pitch my little device here. I have these little devices for $25. You can't believe how cool this is. Look at how thick the stainless. Holy mackerel! It comes in it comes in a camo as well. It's a can opener. I'm sorry, not a can opener, a bottle opener. So you got your bottle opener here too, and it's got a magnet on the back so you can slap it up on your fridge. Is this good or what? So anyway, you just send $25 to my PayPal account. It's down in the information below. Just click on there. You can send it 20. Now, if you're out of the country, I got to charge you an extra $20 for freight. So, or if you join my Patreon, I'll give you one at the $10 level. I'll give you one for free.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.